Hello, everybody. I'm Ethan Hawke. Nothing in my life has happened as mysteriously as this film to me. My mother and I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and she was selling college textbooks. And she fell in love with Flannery O'Connor and drove us out to Milledgeville, Georgia. And I grew up in a house that talked about her like, there's Lincoln, Jefferson, and Flannery O'Connor. So I thought she was the most famous author in the world because you think every house is just like yours, right? But as I got older, and I was falling in love with literature, and I was reading all the usual knucklehead macho suspects, Hemingway, Kerouac, Faulkner. So my mom would be constantly giving me Flannery O'Connor, trying to encourage the inner feminist in me, and I loved them and was always hypnotized by her picture on the back, because when you look at the pictures, this frail, delicate looking woman with these horn green glasses and crutches and usually a peacock, and the stories were ferocious. The imagination at play. It was not Louisa May Alcott. It was not Emily Dickinson. It was like the writer Charles Bukowski wanted to be. It was wild, and I was like, who is this woman? And then time goes by, and my oldest daughter is turning 16 or 17, and she discovered Flannery O'Connor. And Flannery's work started to be a launching place for Maya and I to have some of the most substantive conversations of our lives. She's asking me questions about faith and what does grace mean? Define grace for me. What does she mean when she says that? Who is Kierkegaard? Who is Pierre de Chardin? Who is this? Like, who is Simone Weil? And we were having conversations. I was so grateful to Miss O'Connor that because I was never interested in talking about any of these things, and now she was. And Maya even took Flannery's prayer journal. Most of the voiceover in the film is taken from Flannery's prayer journal, which is letters that she wrote to God, about 18 to 22. Largely, she was trying to reconcile with herself what is the right manifestation of ambition. Is her desire to be a good Christian, her desire to be humble, her desire to be in service, with this other desire inside of her, which is, I want to be Tolstoy. And does that make me a bad person? And do I want to be good so that I can impress others and make other people like me? Or do I want to be good because I want to be of service? And what's that war in the self? And Maya was really drawn to this, and she used the prayer journal to create a monologue for auditions for theater schools. And so she played Flannery O'Connor for the first time for me when she was 18 in our kitchen. And I was like, this is an incredible young actor. This is amazing. And when Stranger Things started to blow up and she started to have some agency of her own, she went out and got the rights to Flannery's life story. And she approached me like, would you want to make a movie about Flannery O'Connor? And so now I'm in dialogue with my mother and my daughter about this Southern writer, this mysterious, cantankerous woman from the Jim Crow South, very dangerous woman, a very dangerous subject matter in American history and American literature. And I thought, yeah, I do want to do that. I think that would be of value, because I secretly wanted to make a movie about my own relationship to imagination and how it impacts reality, and how I don't think there's nearly as much difference as we think. And so I wanted to make a movie that really explored how our imaginative life impacts our daily life, and how the things we think about and the things we pray about impact us in a cellular level in our ability to develop. My mom came to see my Broadway debut, which was with Laura Linney. Go figure. Yeah, I've known Laura longer than I've known Maya. And so, and my mom came backstage and she just said, "I don't know why you want to do that." And I was thinking, Christ, give me a break. That was terrible. I said, "Thanks, Mom." And so that when the mother says, "I don't know why you would want to make things that a lot of people would like to read. Um, I I think anybody who's ventured off to try to carve their own space knows that sometimes the best you can hope for is indifference. You're more often hit with abject loathing, you know. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing it. I had a fantasy when I was first kind of working on the script with Shelby, my co-writer. Like, we had this idea of having, instead of end credits, we would just do all of her bad reviews. You know, because it's kind of stunning when you go back and read them all. They're so bad. Like, New York Times says, of one thing we can be certain: Flannery O'Connor cannot write. You know, and it's like, well, and then you'll meet people on the street when we're making the movie, and people would quote me lines from her short stories. They're 70, 80 years old, one of these 12-page short stories. And somebody still remembers the punchline to 70 years later. This is like a pebble that was thrown in a lake. It's still, the little ripples are still rippling. And the ideas are impacting so many other artists. I mean, if you read about how many people have been influenced by her, it's very powerful. And so, did she write a lot of things that a lot of people would like to read? No, she didn't. I still often make the joke that what story of hers would you most recommend? I say, I wouldn't recommend any of them. They're so upsetting. You know, you know, you know, I don't mean that, but you know, they're tough to read. They're challenging. Oftentimes, you finish them and you feel oddly upset, and then the next day you're like, I think I have to read that again. What did that mean? Why is the guy crying with a tattoo in his backyard with his wife yelling at him? What does that mean? And then you read it again and you find all these. She's a poet, you know, a mysterious poet, and there's power in her. Uh, and so it was fun to explore. That was one of my favorite scenes. And then the Liam scene, you know, the whole movie builds to that. That the movie is building, and it's kind of how we started this conversation, telling you about the right manifestation of ambition. And that what really Liam is his character is presenting to her there is, I don't have the answers to all these questions that are breaking your brain, but I do know that the pursuit of excellence is the way that we are spoken to. You know, that if you do what you love to the best of your ability, what you love will expand. So if you want to write well, write to the gut. It's all straw, right? It's God's business what gets canceled and what doesn't get canceled. You tell your truth and let it fall where it lays, you know. And it's one of my favorite lines in the movie that Liam says, "Joy is sorrow overcome," you know. And so, and that's Maya's. That's what Maya's like. You know, Maya's brain is on fire sometimes, and I wanted to kind of capture that on film. And there's something about being an actor and choosing it for a profession that at its like baseline lacks humility. And I've struggled with that my whole life. I'm going to stand up here and you should listen to me. At a base subconscious level, I'm made uncomfortable by that desire in myself, you know. And that's probably has a lot to do with my father, who does think it's unattractive, you know, and he's not wrong. And it's in me, you know, and what to do with it, what to do with this desire. You know, as a kid, and I'd walk into the ice cream parlor, and I'd think everybody wanted to hear me sing Hank Williams, you know. And, you know, I learned jambalaya today, you know, and I'd go into it, you know. And my dad would just be like, Ethan, nobody wants to hear you sing, you know. And I was like, they don't. And so
Apparently you were right.
well, yes and no. I understand what he means, and it's a lot of what Flannery's talking about is, what is the point of being here? You know, are we supposed to make everybody feel comfortable? Should you give everybody a movie that's going to gently put them to sleep and nicely entertain them? And or do you want to engage people in a conversation? And do you want to write something that not a lot of people want to read? Is there value in that? We're often made to feel that we joke about this. A lot of us are making the movie about numbers, right? Like Maya makes this joke about people compliment me all the time on how many followers I have on Instagram, as if the person with the most amount of followers is not, the Dalai Lama. It's like Kim Kardashian and stuff like that. Is that really the badge of honor I'm chasing? McDonald's has served more hamburgers than anybody else. Do they make the best hamburger? No, they don't. The movie that makes the most money is the best? Really? Are you sure? It's just how we use numbers and how we play with numbers to make people feel big and make people feel small is very interesting. She got terrible reviews, but she did have champions like Robert Lowell and a few other people that were very successful and helped her. And that's the group she wanted to be hanging out with. And we use it in the film as kind of like right as she gets diagnosed, she kind of flashes, I want to show you those experiences. And she realizes, I'm making the point, that she realizes she didn't fit in there either. And it starts the process, when we show you the scene of that party, it's her kind of at first wishing I was back there. So you know how we all do that? I wish I was back at then. And then you really think about where you were then. In this particular case, she wasn't really loving that party. She wasn't happy there. So it helps lead her to that decision of it's okay to be in this room, But she did live for a brief period of time. She went to Iowa's Writers' Workshop. She came to New York to try to be a fabulous writer. It was not going well. Her mother was paying her bills. And we was going to start the movie where his friend said that she got on the train to go home to visit her mom. She was 24 years old, and she got off the train, and she was 104. Somehow the lupus just descended on that train trip. And she was kind of fine in New York, and she could barely walk when she got off the train. I feel really proud of doing something different. I feel really proud of Maya's performance. I feel really proud of my collaboration with Laura Linney. And I feel that I'll close with what haunted me most about this project is in my research, finding in her lifetime, the one movie was made of one of her stories. We show pieces. The Steve Zahn section was made into a movie for television starring Gene Kelly, The Life You Saved. And she was in a situation very much like the one I'm in right now, doing a Q&A, and somebody raised their hand and said, "What was it like to see Gene Kelly act in one of your stories?" And she said, "I can imagine a world in which it could have been worse." And I just, when I heard that, I thought every day while we were writing it and shooting it and editing it, I could hear her going, "Well, I can imagine a world where it could have been worse." And I would just be haunted by that. And it's part of why I really love the punk move at the beginning of the movie, is to show this fake trailer, which is kind of my Brechtian idea of kind of saying, hey, it's a movie. This is going to be weird. And this is not real life. This is not a docudrama. This is not Flannery O'Connor. This is Maya Hawke playing Flannery. This is our artistic hit on her work. It's not real life. Right. And that's uncomfortable to some people. People want to believe. They want to let me go to sleep, and instead of kind of saying, don't go to sleep, don't go to sleep. I'm that annoying guy, like when you're trying to fall asleep and he's like, hey, can I tell you one more thing? And so I don't know that I loved making it and I love sharing it. And I hope it intersects with the world in a way that pisses people off or that they like, and that somehow that works to good.